Will the meeting please come to order for the City of San Clemente Planning Commission, Wednesday, June 17th, 2026, 6 p.m. Gary McCacken, Commissioner McCacken is going to lead us in the pledge tonight. Please join us.
Join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Roll call is all commissioners present with the exception of one. Commissioner Prescott Loeffler is absent. And sitting in for our Assistant City Attorney tonight is Tim Campen. Tim, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Jenna's just on PTO, so he's filling in. We have one special order of business tonight, which is not on the agenda, but I'm going to just use my purview as the chair to conduct it. As you all know, we had the reappointments, and the new appointments are effective in July. So we do have a commissioner that has chosen not to reapply and is leaving, and that's Commissioner McCacken. So we wanted to wish him a farewell, and if you could all just join me for a minute down at the podium. We just want to make a brief presentation to Commissioner McCacken, if you could. This is a resolution of the Planning Commission that essentially acknowledges all your 5 years of service, and we really appreciate you. Many of us all started together. Steve, yourself, me, Karen, Scott, and kind of went through this process as a class, sort of, and so it's a little, it's tough to see you go, but we wanted to acknowledge and say thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's been an honor to serve with you guys.
Yeah, it's been great. I think, kind of coming together all as a team and working together, you're definitely part of that. And, we're going to have to integrate Mr. Washington into the team now, so.
Sure you will.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be successful.
Life goes on, but we want to really acknowledge all your, the past 5 years of being together.
Thank you.
And thank you so much.
Okay.
And we have a little card, too.
Okay.
So thanks.
Picture in front of that there?
Yeah, Tamara, you want to get a group shot?
You have that in the back, and God we trust and all that stuff.
Thank you. Staying away from the sunshine.
Yeah.
How do you turn that off? I mean, how do you lower that? Oh, this is great. I get the city logo.
Look at that. That's what I'm talking about.
great.
That's right. She already thanked me.
Okay,
All right, thanks. Thanks.
of course.
All right, thank you, everybody, for that. And again, I thank you, Gary, and also welcome to Aaron Washington, who is in the audience and will be taking Gary's spot next month. So we look forward to having you here, Aaron, and we're glad that you could make it to say hello to everybody. Okay, item 5 is our meeting minutes from our June 3rd meeting. Does anyone have any corrections or motion?
I'm going to be abstaining on this. I wasn't there.
Okay, fair enough.
I move that we, did you already?
I didn't.
No, we need a motion if you
Yeah,
would be so kind.
Move that we approve the minutes.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Camp and a second from Commissioner McCann to approve the June 3rd meeting minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor of the approval of the minutes, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? So unanimously approved. Thank you so much for that. Item 6 is the standard oral communication from a member of the public. Any member of the public want to speak? If we have, okay, there's none. We have no consent calendar, and then we've got item 8A, a public hearing. So, Mr. Zach, do you want me to open the public hearing and continue it, or what do you want me to do?
Yes, the recommendation is to open the hearing and continue it to a date certain of July 15th.
Okay, so I will go ahead and open the public hearing for item 8A, which is for project 26079. It's the Zebra House patio, and it is at 1001 South El Camino Real, and it's consideration for a 263-foot expansion of their patio area. And the staff has indicated that we need to continue this until when?
We'll be doing another notice, but the anticipated date is July 15th, so we'd recommend you continue it
To that date certain?
to that date certain.
Okay, awesome. Before we do that, does anyone have any disclosures that they want to make at this time on this item? Since, we're not going to hear it, but we can get that out of the way. Anybody? Okay. With that, I will move, we continue this public hearing on the Zebra House patio expansion until July 15th.
I'll second.
Okay, that's motion by myself, seconded by Commissioner Camp. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right, we'll hear that on the 15th. That takes us to new business. So that moves us out of the public hearing arena and into new business. And we have a report that has been in our packet. Everybody's hopefully had an opportunity to take a look at it. And tonight, we have staff that is here to present the report. And I'm not even going to try and summarize it. I'm just going to let the staff explain how we got here, why the report was prepared, all of that. And I know your first name, Sarah. I don't know your last name, but welcome. And you're the consultant that worked with our city staff on the report. Okay, so I'll turn it over to you. Is that correct, or?
I can get
Yes.
things started.
Okay,
Before she starts, can I ask one question?
be my guest.
So this was requested by the city council as a specific item and a report to be made? Are you going to introduce it that way? Okay.
Yes.
Lexi's going to
she's
give
gonna
some
speak to
history
that.
on how we got here,
Okay.
right at the beginning.
Should have turned it to you, right, Lexi? Because you're going to give us the context for the path that took this to this point.
Yes.
All right,
yes.
so Lexi,
Right.
why don't you
Thank
take
you.
over?
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. This is options for amendments to development standards to incentivize hotels and other economic development. Sarah and I are going to be working in tandem on this presentation, and we do have a portion that is GIS, so when we transition, please give us a little bit of time to get that up and running. Just an agenda for you guys today. We'll cover all of these items. It follows the exact manner that your report is written in. That brings us to the project background, which you were curious about. This first started in September 2024. There was a consideration of a zoning amendment to enhance development standards specifically related to visitor serving commercial uses on the Vista Hermosa Freeway interchange. That was discussed in depth by the council members, and they decided to table that, have staff review it as a citywide economic development opportunity, which led us into May 20th of 2025, where council gave us additional guidance for opportunities to enhance TOT, transient occupancy tax revenue, focused on short-term rentals. After that, they expanded it again, June 17th, 2025, to explore increasing development potential of hotels and motels near gateways, again related to TOT revenue. That made its way into our strategic implementation plan, which we brought to you on March 4th, 2026, where you provided the recommendation to City Council to expand that gateway development area into El Camino Real. That was brought to the attention of City Council on June 4th, 2026, where they supported those recommended changes that you guys gave them in the SIP. To get started, just a general sense of gateways. It's in our general plan as urban design element 2.01 through 2.12. The purpose of these is to create clearly defined entry points into San Clemente, which can include architectural standards, wayfinding, etc. The history is that they were adopted in the general plan in 2014. That area marked in orange is where we decided to focus our area for the overlay. We started with the gateways because that was the council directive. perspective initially, and we have expanded upon those concepts as I'll detail further in this presentation. But this was our starting point, this is where we began, and then we fine-tuned along the way. Focus areas was another portion. There are 8 existing focus areas throughout the city. We're going to be primarily focusing on 4 to 5, the North Beach, El Camino Real section. We're not looking at the Del Mar T-zone, but we will be continuing through South El Camino Real and a little bit of Los Molinos. The purpose of the focus areas is to identify areas considered to have the most potential for change, so most development opportunities, and this influenced our location for the economic development overlay creation, and more so our boundaries for what that overlay was going to include. Now we'll take it to the map preview, which Tamara, if you would be able to pull that up for me. This is going to be a general summary of the proposed economic development overlay. We can bring this up at any point in time during the rest of the presentation, and this is focused on option 2 out of option 1 through 8, which is create an economic development overlay district. So this is the map here, and I will get control in a second and be able to zoom in for you all. Fingers crossed, says Tamara.
Yes.
I don't see anything. Oh, okay. I got it now. Okay, so the area in purple is the gateway, or the economic development overlay. The stars are the gateway points, so those points of defined areas in and out of the city. And if I zoom in here a bit more, we did our initial review again around the gateways, so we created these buffer zones just for context to see, would it make sense if parcels within a 100 to 500 foot radius would make sense as just those parcels being included in the overlay, or does it make sense to expand further, which based on the feedback that we received from you all made sense to include El Camino Real. But we wanted to keep these in because that was the primary focus of City Council's direction. So again, we have additional areas up here which are not primarily located in any of those focus areas, but are opportunities for economic development. We start at the farthest north end of town where that primary gateway is, and then transition all the way through. Again, like I said, we did not include the Del Mar T-zone. We felt that that had already had many economic development opportunities. There are already hotels in the works of being proposed there. There's a lot of retail. It's a central part of the city. So we felt that it would be appropriate to move into areas that would be better suited for redevelopment for economic opportunities. So we continue that all the way through until the last bit of South El Camino Real. This was also included, and I'll have Sarah explain some of the zoning information based on this, but we started with the gateways, we created this overlay, and then also included specific zones that we wanted to include as well to expand the opportunity areas. And then I will go back to the PowerPoint. And like I said, if you need to see the map again, we can pause and go back to that. And I will hand it off to Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So moving on, to give background on the report, we want to start with development standards. What are they? How do we use development standards to regulate development in the city? What do we really want to amend to incentivize? So on the screen here is basically development standards from our zoning code that San Clemente uses. And in looking at the potential for benefit to developer redevelopment opportunities, the items on the left are those standards that we see potential. If we were to amend them in some way, it would potentially benefit economic development. On the right are things that either were already pretty lenient, it's already maxed out, or it's not something we really think would be a benefit if we amended: landscaping, lot area, and setbacks. We also wanted to kind of talk about the fact that there are many layers of development standards in this city, and in every city really. We start with the general plan that lays a foundational vision. It outsets policies, it gives intentions and quality of design, quality of development. General plan tells us what we want to do. The zoning code implements it. So the zoning code regulates the uses. It's the main driver and holder of development standards. It talks about the physical aspects of developing land. With zoning districts, you also have, on top of that, overlays. Overlay districts alter development standards, but they are typically for unique themes or purposes. And they are basically kind of overriding the underlying zoning. On top of that, we have specific plans. Specific plans are kind of like overlays, but for a specific area, it usually sets the vision for an area. And they also alter development standards. As Lexi pointed out, we have focus areas. These are more visionary documents, which we've talked about in our report, and helps us define some of the areas we're going to talk about today. And then again, we have gateways, and these are really defined in a general plan as areas that cue or symbolize transition between areas, things we want to focus on aesthetically. With all the development standards we have in the city, how do they impact property owners and developers? Well, typically it's time, it's expense, and it's an uncertainty. Approval processes can affect developers. The longer it takes a development to get off the ground, get through approval, get through construction, the more unlikely it's going to get built, right? Expense, does the density that provide through development standards, does it allow a developer to pencil it? Does it actually make sense to build it with all of the constraints built in? Can someone get financing? So expense, development standards impact expenses. And then uncertainty. The more subjective a standard is, the more subjective decisions are built into the process. That's uncertainty to developers. If standards are more objective, a little bit more black and white, that gives more certainty. They know how to get a project through. And review processes can also include uncertainty, which basically is risk for a developer. Okay, so moving on from development standards, we wanted to take a look at what has been built and or permitted in the city in the last 10 years. So using staff knowledge, our software systems, and some institutional knowledge, we have a pretty good list of the major projects that have gone through since 2015. These would be non-residential or mixed use. We did not include residential neighborhoods or buildings. But being widely built out, development activity has been somewhat limited, but not stagnant. So over the last 10 years, about 14 projects have been permitted and built. And then the other, about 8 projects are currently, have been approved but not built. And then there's a number of projects kind of going through the hopper right now. So many of these projects had gone through pretty lengthy review processes to get to approval, and then also to get through to construction. And some needing coastal commission, some had appeals, other delays that weren't necessarily based on development standards. But anecdotal data suggests that expense, time, and risk seems to have limited the activity here. But market data shows that there is room for growth, which we will get to in a second. We do have a inventory of hotels and hotel rooms. We keep it up to date, and a lot of the hotels are kind of boutique, smaller. They're, less than 20 rooms. We do have 4 at the bottom that were on the previous slide that have been permitted but not built. But no new hotels have come online in more than 10 years. Throughout this process, staff has reached out to the residents and property owners and developers to get some feedback on the process and what they're looking for. Generally, residents, they're interested in increased economic development. They do believe that visitor serving activities are symbiotic with resident activities, but there's really no general consensus on how to attract investment. And then Staff reached out to a limited subset of developers or owners of property here, about 6. So, kind of a focused feedback, and just ask them, what are roadblocks you get from development standards? If we change things, how can it make it easier or better, or make you choose San Clemente over other cities? So we didn't give them any information, we just asked for feedback, and these were some of the things that we kind of heard from everyone. Certainty and predictable paths to approval is one of the major points we've heard over and over. They would like for more things to be determined by the market and not a standard written by somebody, in an office. So like parking is been studied by developers and investors and hotel operators and other uses. We've heard 4 stories or higher FAR will allow for more flexibility in building design and construction types, and just more opportunity to build more. And then obviously always financial incentives, fee deferrals. Who wouldn't want some money to help pencil out a project or keep a project operating to make it feasible? So that's what we heard. Moving on to market analysis. So we heard, San Clemente has people are interested in building here, right? And we wanted to kind of look at why. We looked at our neighboring communities of San Juan Capistrano and Dana Point, and then went out a little bit further to communities within about 20 miles that have coastal zone. And generally, San Clemente is in the middle of the range in terms of population at about 62,000. A third of Oceanside, but 3 times as much as Laguna. We are also middle of the road in terms of land area. Interestingly, though, we are pretty much at the bottom of the list for TOT revenue. We've earned $3.3 million in taxes from our hotels. In 2024, this is from the State Controller's Office. And the next one up is Laguna Beach, Dana Point, Oceanside at 17 million. We are 10% of Newport Beach at 31 million. And we are just above San Juan Capistrano, who, interestingly enough, in this data set, it goes back to 2017. They were at about 600,000. So they've increased their TOT by 170% in 7 years, less than 7 years. And they started with 1 hotel at that time, and they have 2 now built, 2 additional, and another one permitted, which we could talk about. So from there, we use these cities and used a proprietary software called Placer AI. This is a software that uses essentially cell phone data to understand and learn consumer behavior. So they understand where you are, where you're spending money. And so we've used this to analyze trips. So all visitor trips, and this is where a visitor's home distance is greater than 50 miles, and their length of stay is at least 5 hours, right? So anyone doing that, we looked at their trips for the last year. And again, San Clemente is kind of middle of the road and pretty comparable to Laguna Beach and Dana Point at 700,000 total visitor trips in a year. Newport Beach and Oceanside are kind of at the top of these lists. The middle chart, average monthly visitors, again, we're kind of tracking with Laguna and Dana Point. We're at about 50,000 average monthly visitors. And then our total spend, though, is a little off. We're still in the middle, but we're half as much as Dana Point at about 70 million. So from total visitors, we move to overnight visits. And overnight trips consist of any trip with a minimum duration of 5 hours that starts on one calendar day and ends in another. So the table on the left, total visit nights for the year. San Clemente, again, middle, but 1.2 million nights, hotel nights, basically. We track behind Newport Beach and Oceanside, but we're kind of above the other 4. In the middle table, kind of different, we're at the top finally, It's the average duration of overnight trips, so people stay here 3.6 days on average. It's not that far off from the others at 3.4 or 3.2 in Dana, but it's just interesting kind of fact that they stay a little bit longer here. And then the right is, of all trips, percentage of overnight is about 2/3 of all trips are overnight trips. So just kind of building our understanding of our city versus others. So then, again, looking at the overnight visits, we wanted to see, what do people do? Where do they go? So typically, if you're in Oceanside, the second column, people go to their hotel the most, and then they might go to a restaurant, or they might go to retail or groceries. But from what the data shows from Placer AI, they go to their hotel most, and then lesser, they go to restaurants, retail. So you see that for Oceanside, Newport, San Juan, Dana Point, and Laguna, hotels or restaurants are the top 2 activity points where people go. In San Clemente, it's number 4. So the data suggests that people come to San Clemente, they go to their hotel, and then they go to groceries and retails and restaurants at a higher rate than they do their hotel. So it suggests they do more activity here than just going to their hotel room and sleeping or going somewhere else. Again, talking about overnight stays, we looked at overnight leakage. So leakage is considering, of all the people who come to San Clemente, how much are we losing to other cities because they come here, but they stay in other hotels in other cities. So we're actually kind of low on the list. 11% of our potential total overnight visits are lost to other cities. Laguna Beach, San Juan Capistrano, they lose a lot more at 20, or about 20%. We lose it at about 11%. So it's a natural occurrence, but it does show that there's some natural room for growth, right? And then the table on the right is just San Clemente. Where are we losing our hotel to? Like, people who come here, where are they staying? So Dana Point and San Juan Capistrano make up about 20% of our leakage nights, but that's kind of typical because they're our neighbors. And when people want to stay in a city, they don't necessarily look at city limits. So that's kind of a natural occurrence. But it's interesting to see what other cities are we losing our visitors to where they want to stay. Again, using Placer AI, we wanted to understand if more hotels were, who would want to build here if it were a hotel? Is it even something that would be interesting to them? And the software has a thing called Fit Score, and it basically determines if you put a physical site in, it looks at the site, it looks at all the demographics of the visitors near that site, it looks at what a chain typically wants in their demographic of clients, and it even talks about cannibalism or the potential tenant's customer turn rate at other spots. So it takes 4 things into consideration. And in my report, I detailed 3, but just as an example, one of the sites we looked at, when we did a fit score of any retail use, hotels came up 22 times with a high fit score of 90%. So a fit score could have things like shoe stores, groceries, what's a good potential fit for this site? And hotels came up 22 times, and these were the ones specifically that it pulled up. So it just suggests that, like a Grand Hyatt, the people who come to San Clemente in this area that we picked the parcel on, those clients would go to a Grand Hyatt. So a Grand Hyatt would be a potential good tenant here. Hope that makes sense. Again, just another data point for us to look at. Okay, now moving on from overnight stays and visitors, we wanted to look at our residents and kind of more of an economic development theme for the city. How do we benefit that? And kind of like the leakage nights for hotels, we looked at retail leakage. So think of, you live in San Clemente, You can do grocery stores here, or you could go to grocery stores outside of the city. So that's what retail leakage is, the amount of time or the amount of volume that people go outside of San Clemente to buy. So auto dealers are top of the list. Grocery stores are a pretty common thing. At $80 million, our residents go outside of the city to shop for groceries. Our $75 million is lost because people in San Clemente go to other cities for limited service eating places. So the thought here is we want economic development, not just for visitors, we want it for our citizens. So in theory, anything that we bring in on the table on the left would be good not only for visitors, but our residents, because this is demand not met here in the city. On the flip side, retail surplus are things that we provide more of than just our residents need. So like we sell a lot of shoes, we sell a lot of flowers. Our visitors come and buy more than what our residents need. So that's just kind of an interesting fact that it's kind of like an export. We export shoes and flowers. Moving on from market analysis. We looked at our peer cities that we talked about earlier and added a few more in. We wanted to see if these cities have done anything specific, kind of like what we're looking at today, to try and incentivize development through changing zoning standards. San Juan Capistrano had the most interesting case over 10 years ago, or so, I forget the number. They realized that their development standards were not conducive to hotel development, so they did a specific floor area ratio increase and a specific height increase. And so they did that. They amended their zoning districts, zoning codes. They also instituted a luxury hotel TOT revenue share. When the changes went in, the zoning changes to increase FAR and height, before that they had one hotel. Now they had, with the changes, they got 2 more hotels in after the changes were implemented. They have another hotel currently going through the process, and at least one of these hotels have made use of the luxury hotel revenue share. So this sounds like a pretty good success. I will maybe caveat that their FAR and height increases kind of rival what we have now. So they had really low density, really low heights. Dana Point, staff really noted no specific changes to incentivize hotel development. Hotels are a permitted use in some zoning districts out there, and they did have a recent update to their Dana Point Harbor specific plan, specifically to allow for hotels redeveloped in that harbor. Newport Beach, staff again noted no specific changes that they, can tie development to zoning amendments. They did mention for hotels, amenities do not count towards the square footage, so that's kind of maybe a small bonus for developers. Laguna Beach, again, they noted no specific changes did they conduct over the years. There is a specific zone that allows hotels, strictly hotels as a permitted use without ancillary uses, and they have some parking flexibility downtown. Oceanside, they have actually gone through a zoning amendment. They created an incentive district, but it just got certified through the Coastal Commission. And it does allow an optional incentive-based standards for redevelopment. Since it recently got certified, it hasn't necessarily been codified yet. So we don't know, it's not really put in use yet, so we don't know. But this is an interesting study to look at what they've done to try to incentivize. Santa Ana is a local city that they created similar to San Juan Capistrano, a luxury hotel revenue share to split the costs basically of revenue received. And then finally, I know it's far, Petaluma is an interesting city. Like and I brought it on the list because they have a specific economic overlay for development purposes. It was initiated by a hotel developer years ago, and the city opted to go forward with it. They approved it to increase height, to increase FAR and lot coverage. I will note that since this was created and approved, the hotel itself came back with slightly lesser densities because the public wanted that. And then also there is a current referendum effort underway to back it off, so. Okay, now we get to the good part. Based on all of the information we've looked at and considered, we came up with 8 options to consider. And kind of the order of placement on this is somewhat tied to what we thought was how effective it might be, also how hard it might be to implement. So as we kind of focused on number 2 earlier, which we'll get into, but number 1 is easing the approval process for hotel uses. We think it's relatively effective, but it's pretty easy to implement, so it's not as complex. Number 2 is going to be pretty effective, but also pretty hard to implement. So that's kind of how we chose this. In no way does this mean one has to go before the other. These all kind of work in tandem. Some we may choose not to go forward with, but these are just different options that we can consider, which I'll get into. So option number 1 is easing the approval process for hotel uses. So across the board in all non-residential and mixed-use zoning districts, hotels are a conditional use permit, except for in our specific plans, in some zoning districts, they are permitted uses. So on the table on the left, you see NC2 is a CUP, but in the West Pico corridor specific plan, it is permitted. So on El Camino Real, it's interesting that on one side of the street, you're in the West Pico specific plan and a hotel is permitted use. But across the street in the same zoning district, it's not in a specific plan, it is a conditional use permit. So one suggestion is kind of make it standard is to allow for hotels to be a permitted use in the green zoning districts. So NC2, NC3, the table on the right would be what we would propose. Changing from conditional use permit to permitted use, there's kind of 2 factors. First of all, these projects, if it's a new non-residential building, would still have to go through a development permit, still be heard by the Planning Commission. So it's not necessarily a massive change, but it does signal to the development community that hotels have been considered as a wanted land use. It's a permitted use. It's not something we have to consider if we want a hotel or not. There is another option to streamline it and make it a different, a lower level development permit. So you could go further than what we're suggesting right now and say this could be a ministerial permit, no public hearing. But again, it would still have to have design review because it's in an overlay, the architectural, so there's a lot of layers again, but changing from CUP to P permitted symbolizes we want hotels here. It wouldn't have as many findings of fact. So that's an option. Option number 2 is creating an economic development overlay that Lexi showed you on the map. So this would be in areas of gateways. This would be along El Camino Real. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, okay. So the idea here is within this area, we incentivize redevelopment of properties by allowing either a higher lot coverage, because some zoning districts like MU 3.1 are already 100%. You can't go higher. But MU2 only allows 50%. So we can incentivize in this area to go up to 100%. For floor area ratio, we have a pretty wide range allowed, but we propose allowing someone to go up another 0.5 floor area ratio. So instead of an MU 3.2, you get 1.5 for a commercial portion in the mixed use, you can go up to 2. And then,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
On what you're proposing here in green,
Mm-hmm.
is that only for hotel uses in these zone areas, or is it changing the zoning for all uses in those areas?
It would be an overlay for redevelopment of visitor serving uses. So it could be hotels, it could be a grocery store, a new store, so we are expanding, there's been multiple directions from council and planning commission. We're trying to combine, so it's not just hotel at this point, it's major redevelopment, yeah. So then the third option is increasing height. Let's go up to 4 stories instead of 3 stories, and allowing, give or take 11 extra feet up to a floor plate. Third option is amending special uses standards for hotels. So kind of this is more hotel focused right now. Chapter 17.28 lists special standards for specific uses, and hotels has pretty much 2 requirements. One is it gives a density cap for the number of rooms they could have on a property. So 1 room you can have per 500 square feet of your lot. And then the second requirement it talks about is parking, that you could reduce parking through a CUP. So we're proposing just eliminating the density cap of units. I'm not exactly sure where this came from. This was amended in the 90s, so it's already a 30-year-old requirement. That probably came from someone, we don't know where the standard came from, but the fact that we already govern lot coverage, we govern setbacks, we govern height, we govern FAR, if a hotel can come in on a property and build 100 hotel rooms versus 120, this doesn't affect it. So let a hotel build what they can build, given the parameters of our zoning code, of our FAR height, things like that. And then the other requirement that is an option is making alternative parking numbers an easier option. So we keep hearing the parking standards, it's not necessarily real life considerations. Hotels know what they need to park to make their visitors happy, their guests happy. And good parking isn't always just numbers, it's efficient parking management. So you don't necessarily need to build a lot of parking spaces to have good parking. You need to be able to manage those spaces and make sure they're used through valet or transportation sharing, things like that. Moving on to option 4, streamlining with local coastal program certification. So our staff is currently working with the Coastal Commission and trying to get the implementation plan approved and certified. So we're already doing this partially. The option is really prioritizing staff to work towards an in-lieu fee program for lower cost overnight accommodations, LCOA. LCOAs are very important to the Coastal Commission. It's making sure that people have access to hotel rooms that are affordably priced, right? The question kind of here is how do hotel operators provide this? Do they have to provide it on-site or off-site, or can they give a pool of money for the city to develop? And we've heard in lieu fees for this or parking or other things are helpful because it's certainty. They know how much they need to provide. They could do it. They could put it into their pro forma. It's an easy thing to provide. But if they don't know how to build or provide the LCOAs, it's harder for them to figure it out and get it in the design. So this option is basically prioritizing staff to not only get this in lieu fee program started, but also taking the extra step to understanding, creating the account to hold fees, but also identifying a suitable site in a city where once we have a bucket of fees, how do we use those fees to actually create an affordable hotel or affordable rooms? So maybe that means reaching out to interested developers of affordable hotels and figuring out when we have fees, how do we actually implement it? Moving on to option 5. Staff has considered waiving freeway height restrictions. So in the NC2 and the NC3 district, the height standard for NC2 is 33 feet, 2 stories. For NC3, it's 3 stories, 45 feet. However, for a small stretch on El Camino Real South, these 2 districts have an additional restriction that says along this area, you can be no higher than the middle of I-5. So it's kind of an awkward thing to understand what height it is at your property, but also this is the only zoning district where we have an additional restriction based off of like something off your property. So we are proposing to waive this, to get rid of it, eliminate it. It doesn't change the zoning height. It just allows people in this zone, in this area, to do what the zoning districts allows them. It's interesting to see the NC2 and have your property, but then, oh, I actually can't build to 33 feet. So this would allow someone in this area to actually build to what the zoning allows. Option 6 is lengthening the carryover of entitlements. So when a project gets approved and built, such as a hotel, if it closes down or ceases operations after a year, that approval goes away. So we are proposing to give a longer time frame, up, say 5 years. This really kind of, if a project was approved and a new project can come in without going through the big process of a new conditional use permit for the same exact thing that was there a year ago, we think that would be beneficial. Almost done. Number 7 is publishing a map of reduced parking areas. California has been rethinking its parking, as we probably all have heard, and they've published a number of laws. One of them is AB 2097, and this law states that cities can no longer require a minimum standard of parking within a half a mile of a major transit center. This is non-resident, this is pretty much any land use, but it exempts cities specifically for hotels. So a hotel, we could still apply a minimum parking standard. We don't have to, we could waive that, but that's what the law says. Within a half mile of a major transit stop, we cannot enforce minimum parking standards. So we think it would be beneficial for people to understand, does my property fall within that range or not? So we propose to publish a map so people can see if their property doesn't need to follow minimum parking standards. The second one is AB 894, and this law states that if you own a property with an underutilized parking lot, you can share those unused spaces with another user. But it's not always known like who has an underutilized parking spot. So we are interested in publishing a voluntary map where if you have a parking lot that's underutilized, you could put your lot on there, and then people who may need extra parking can be like, oh, you have extra parking spaces. This makes parking more efficient. This means we now have parking spaces that are not vacant here and we have a high demand over here. It kind of just helps out even out your parking. Finally, we have exploring revenue sharing of transient occupancy tax. So this is kind of like the option that San Juan Capistrano has put forth, or Santa Ana, or a number of cities. But this is tailored to luxury hotels, something that San Clemente doesn't really have. So this option it wouldn't require an expense at the front because if the tax doesn't exist, there's nothing to share. But if a new 4-star, triple, quadruple diamond hotel wants to come in, they can enter an agreement with the city. The tax goes from zero to, we'll say, $1 million, the city would give them half of it or whatever percent you decide to help them make the numbers better, help them operate, help them get loans, and then San Clemente gets the rest of it. And then this would expire after a few years. So it's a very strong financial incentives to hotel developers specifically to make the city more attractive. So that is another, I know TOT sharing has been considered in the past, so this may or may not be an interesting option, but we wanted to throw it out there. And with that, I am done. But we are here for questions.
You will get a lot of questions.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that. You did a really good job of organizing this report into the different categories and explaining it, so
Glad to hear that.
kudos to you.
Thank you.
I'm going to recommend to my colleagues we just go to public comment, because then we can have all of our discussion and questions and all that. So let's just keep rolling with listening, and in listening mode here, and I have two blue cards. So I'll call on our first member of the public that wants to speak, Amanda Quintanilla, followed by Bob Bailou, or Robert Bailou. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. And Chair Cosgrove, thank you for pronouncing my last name correctly. I really appreciate that. And thank you for welcoming the new Planning Commissioner, Mr. Aaron Washington. I grew up at North Beach, and most people don't realize that it is a residential area. And people understand it's a residential area when there's been complaints at Old Hanson Beach Club regarding 24 carats because there was no CUP that was done. And so people complained about the noise levels there, even also at Landers when that was there previously. One of the things that I wanted to start off with, but I didn't, please don't Dana Point San Clemente. And I think that's really important to understand. You know, to know San Clemente, I think that's really important. We are the Spanish village by the sea, and that's why candidates always say that, because it's a refresher, a reminder of who we are. And if we lose that, we become something else. We become Oceanside, and do we want that? And with all the increase of homeless down there, there is major concerns with that. And but Pico Plaza was mentioned earlier, and that's come up many years. And that is privately owned by someone, and it's always been used as something, a placeholder for affordable housing or whatnot, but I certainly don't want that. One of the things that the city staff mentioned was this overlay, this gateway overlay that was done, but failed to mention that there was a lot of public outcry at each of the city council meetings, planning commission meetings. There was public outcry. And there was threat of litigation. And so regarding the noise levels and regarding a rooftop bar, which basically was pushed through. And that's why there was the changes were made. So you failed to say that. And I think that's really important, because when looking at the June 2nd City Council meeting regarding the restrictions and the changes, and I applauded the Planning Commission who expressed concerns regarding the loss of authority of the zoning amendment that would adversely affect public health, safety, and welfare. And they mentioned about the power, the water, sewage, and that may not be adequate to support that maximum number of ADUs. So I really applaud you for that, because that's something that we really need to know, that do we want it, we are built out, but do we really want all this development and increasing rents and increasing home values to where it's not really affordable for anybody? Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight and giving us those thoughts. We have one more speaker. We have Robert Bailou. Sir, welcome. Thanks for coming out as well.
Good evening. Unlike this young lady here, Mr. Cosgrove did not pronounce my name correctly, so I'd like to fine
Sorry about
or
that.
something.
I'll take a demerit then.
My name's Robert Beaulieu. I moved to San Clemente in 1976. I've seen a lot. A lot of changes, a lot of good, a lot of bad. And I've been very involved in the city for a number of years. Managed a bank in San Clemente, coached soccer, indoor soccer, basketball, had a girls club traveling team. I started the industrial committee for the Chamber of Commerce. I was their president in 1996. I helped create a Shop San Clemente First program. And that was to focus tax dollars to get people in San Clemente to shop here, as opposed to go away from us. Now, I read your overlay, very complicated for me. I've been retired for 10 years, so. But I want to mention the fact that one thing that you haven't considered is the history of this town. There have been a lot of changes, and it appears to me that you're focusing on trying to bring hotels here. Understand there are 4 that have already been approved, searching for financing. If we try to bring more hotels, she said we're not Oceanside. I don't want to be Dana Point. I don't want to be Huntington Beach. That's not us. This is a surf town. El Camino Real goes through this town. It starts in Laredo, Mexico. And once it comes to California, it goes 600 miles north of here. Our El Camino Real is not representative of a real El Camino Real. There's not a lot of work that needs to be done there. We've got vacant buildings, boarded up buildings, things that we don't appreciate here. And as a planning commission, I would hope that you would nudge our council members forward to clean up El Camino Real, have an economic development director look at funds, find funds to clean it up. We got Rite Aid's gone. Across the street from Rite Aid, that building's been vacant for a number of years. El Siesta or La Siesta, and you go south, there's more and more. We've got small hotels, small strip hotels, motels. Why don't we help them build another story as opposed to looking for a big giant hotel that's going to bring a lot of money in, maybe, but will run these other hotels out of business. So I'd like to ask you to focus on economic development, not on hotels, on building, helping businesses in this community survive and bringing new business in. Thank you for your time, and thank you for what you do for the city of San Clemente.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. All right, that is all the members of the public. Aaron, did you want to talk? Are you good?
Good.
All right.
Take it in.
That's everybody that's in the audience then. Fantastic. Okay, we've gotten some good public input. We've gotten a nice report from the staff. We have the document here. As I understand it, Zach, what you're looking from us tonight is our thoughts to help you maybe go back and revise this report with the goal of taking it eventually to the city council. But you want our input tonight on the direction that maybe staff should go for a revision. Do I have that correct?
That's right. It's also our intent to return to the planning commission with that revised report.
Okay.
But yeah, we're looking for questions, comments, suggestions for updates, more research.
So this is an effort that you guys undertook based on some feedback you got from us, as well as the council, and this is, you're really looking for some feedback, and so this cement's not even, it's still really, it's freshly poured, it's still wet, lots can change, and you want to know, well, where should we focus, where should we not focus, that type of thing. So with that, maybe it's, we can have some conversation, but maybe, I don't know if we want to ask someone to lead off with their thoughts, and then we can all take turns, and you want to go, Commissioner Freeman? Great.
So I prepared a little statement, so I wouldn't ramble too much tonight. But first of all, thank you for putting together the Gateway Overlay Economic Development Initiative report. Very, very thorough. I support reasonable economic growth that strengthens our city's revenue while protecting the Spanish Village by the sea character that defines San Clemente, like the speakers had mentioned. However, I have significant concerns with the broad approach outlined, particularly option one. Making hotels a permitted use by right in multiple zoning districts, along with the proposed economic develop overlay, relaxed parking standards, freeway height waivers, and TOT revenue sharing. First, streamlining the process to address the negative trifecta of time, expense, and uncertainty is tactical, but it is not strategic. And I think we have to focus on a strategic plan. Overall, our approval process is already relatively efficient and effective. The real barriers to vibrant development are physical. We lack the critical mass needed for successful retail and restaurant clusters, as we've seen success in River Street and San Juan Capistrano. Automatically approving several new hotels removes the very discretionary review that allows us to protect community character, views, and quality of life, which is very important to San Clemente. This risks diminishing resident voices, including public hearings, and it creates a perception of backroom deals, which we don't want. Secondly, before we offer major incentives like extra height, 100% lot coverage, reduced parking requirements, or sharing up to 50% of the TOT revenue with luxury operators, we need better data. The current height level brand fit scores are not enough, in my opinion. We should require a granular property level inventory of our existing hotels. Now, I saw the thing that you put up there, kind of gave us an idea of how many hotel rooms we have. That's a good start. But I think furthermore, we need the type, the age, the room count, which you have, location, average daily rate, occupancy, and performance. That's to let us know what we currently have, and is this really needed for more hotel rooms? Went off the script there, just so you know. Only then can we determine if we truly have an unmet demand and or risk oversupply, which we don't want to do. Thirdly, gateways must mean more than visual cues or automatic approvals. We need aspirational village-aligned standards with specific locations identified and renderings that reinforce our unique neighborhoods, not generic prototypes. My recommendation is to table the broad by right approvals and the overlay district until we complete these little steps. A full market analysis, an asset analysis, targeted gateway master plans with design standards and visuals, quantitative modeling of traffic, parking, infrastructure costs, and net revenue to the city. So let's pursue thoughtful, design-driven pilots on one or two priority areas while retaining planning commission oversight. I think it's very important that we still have that. This approach will deliver genuine economic benefit without eroding what makes San Clemente special. That's all I have.
That was well prepared, thank you.
I have more.
Oh, okay, wow.
But
We can always come back. Commissioner Griffin, should we just go down the line? Do you want to pass for now?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner McCann?
First of all, thank you. Second of all, Brent, that was excellent. Truly excellent. Your best work yet on the planning commission, honestly. So with that as a starting point, my comments and or questions are going to be much more haphazard than that. But I agree with you completely. I don't think approval, is our problem. As evidenced by, we've got 4 approved hotels that haven't built. Why not? Do we know why not?
They've been recent approvals.
Yeah, most of that is financial or coastal commission as part of the approval process, but Zach, I don't know if you want to speak more on that, but that's what we've seen from those.
Yeah, that and high interest rates and challenges getting financing.
Okay, so none of these things that we're proposing or are being proposed would address the needs or requirements for those people that have already brought thoughtfully prepared, development proposals forward and yet are not getting built. I don't think, in my opinion, that any of those four hotels proposals had significant hurdles through the approval process. The trickiest one was the historic aspects for the one down by by that motor inn. But,
The Sea Cliff, and the Pier Bowl.
yeah, that was the trickiest one, but fundamentally,
Even that was done in 2 hearings.
fundamentally, they were supported and got through and got their approval. And I don't think that the residents of the city want to allow these by right anywhere in all these places and give up exposure to public hearings and process. But I don't think we've been particularly rigorous or overly rigorous in our analysis and review approval. I'm suspect of a lot of the stuff in the report. So for example, you said we have $3.3 million of TOT, and you said we had 1.2 million nights of hotel rooms spent, which seems kind of impossible to believe, given how few hotels we have in town. But if you do simple math, that says that we got $2.75 per night out of TOT tax. And if we have a 10% TOT tax, I don't think those rooms are going for $27.50. So there's something wrong there. In one of the leakage charts, table 14, it talked about the various leakage, and I did a quick rough add on the columns on the right, and it added up to like 55%. What about the other 45%? Did we leak up to Anaheim? I doubt it. I think there's kind of, the chances that we're properly analyzing the amount of oversupply of florists in town seems completely unnecessary and unlikely. Based on what I saw, maybe we should be trying to get car dealerships in town. I mean, have we analyzed what the value is of a car dealership versus a hotel relative to revenue to the city? I don't know. It seems like this is kind of tunnel vision on hotels without really any bigger or more global perspective on it. Let's see what else. Our second big loss in leakage, it said, was to electronic shipping. What does that mean? How are we? Does that mean if we had big distribution warehouses that would ship out? Okay.
No Amazon.
Okay, well, we had a proposal for that, and then we kind of lost it before it even got to the starting gate. Do we know where the freeway height restriction came from? Was that a Caltrans thing? Was that a Coastal Commission thing for view corridor?
No, that was an action by this planning commission and the city council in, I think, 2020, 2021. And it was in response to concerns about developments blocking people's view of the ocean from the freeway. There are also sound walls. Caltrans will only allow sound walls in certain places. They can only go so high, and there may have been concern that if there was a building higher than the sound wall, they would experience increased noise. But that was a relatively recent action that our staff and some of the people we reached out to feel has had the effect of stifling development along about a mile of El Camino Real, where people are subject to a restriction that's more strict than just the base zoning.
Okay, thank you, that's super informative. So it's self-imposed. Okay, well, those are my comments for now.
Yeah, we can do rounds, right?
Right.
We're trying to do, I think iteratively might be the best way to go. Commissioner Camp, would you like to share your preliminary thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your work. Yeah, I also agree. Commissioner Freeman, excellent comments. A lot of the comments that I was thinking myself. This guy lifted his head up, I can see over there. No, I appreciate the, I appreciate the effort that went into that. I have a few questions that are more detailed, but I also have sort of a general statement about the report. And that is that it's a very statistic-based. I think there needs to be a balance between statistics and direct comparisons and sort of a quality of environment. And I think that was alluded to with the comparison with Oceanside, which is not a bad place, certainly, but is very different from San Clemente. I also didn't hear, and maybe I missed it, of any sort of a comparison between available developable properties in these various cities, which I think is very important. And that makes it more of a focused report. So we're looking at specific properties, zones, and sort of going out from there. I think that's important that we do that. And so there needs to be, and you've heard me say this before, but it needs to be a diagrammatic and a graphic presentation so that we can compare, the quality of developments in each of the cities. Let's make a comparison between whatever we consider to be downtown Dana Point, for instance, and downtown San Clemente, which is primarily Del Mar down to the Pier Bowl. So there needs to be this sort of I know it's somewhat abstract, but it has to do with perception and the quality of the environment in San Clemente, which is what we're trying to uphold. And I think that that's something that carries through generations. We heard from the gentleman this evening who's been here since 1976. And really, he talked a lot about El Camino Real. So there's a crossover or comparison with this gateway concept, which I don't think necessarily has to mesh with the need for economic growth through hotel tax, okay, TOT. So again, I think there's going to be a need for a combination of the big picture and then honing in on specific properties. Also, there are some developments that were mentioned, like the riverfront over in San Juan, which I know is suffering for various reasons. So let's look at why certain projects are successful and why certain projects aren't, and how that has to do with the overall environment of those areas. And, and look at the opportunities that are available in San Clemente. I think we all agree that El Camino Real is a unique thoroughfare in our city, right? I mean, it takes you from one end to the other of, that's mostly southwest, but it's a great opportunity to interject economic growth in our city if we look at that. And I think it'd be good for us to say, okay, yeah, hotel tax, that's part of it, right? That has something to do with it. But really, that's only a piece. That's only a small piece. And this report is really focused on that particular item, and I think that needs to be broadened. One of the things, I know Commissioner McCann mentioned that some of those stats are hard to believe. One of them, I think it said, people come to San Clemente to go to restaurants, which I'm getting that. A lot of people say, hey, we're going to meet you for dinner. We want to go to San Clemente. But yet, the longer stays, 3.6, I think it was, for San Clemente, that doesn't seem to add up. So I'm not sure, where that stat came from. You talked about shared parking, which in concept is great. I think there's just too many empty parking lots that are run down. I think we need to investigate, the possibility of shared parking throughout and across the city. So there should be a little bit more focus on that, but how does that work? You know, it isn't just a parking study, right? It's an evaluation of the long-term benefits to the overall corridor if we start sharing parking, and how does that affect the individual uses? So that needs to play into it, I believe. You talked a little bit about, which I appreciate, the incentives that have been used in other cities to try to get economic growth, to get some hotels built. But which of these cities has actually used that? The ones that are with a lot of hotels, they haven't used it. So that leads me to believe that there are different factors that are going into the success of hotels in these cities. Again, you know, San Clemente is not Newport Beach, you know, obviously. I mean, they have 10 times the revenue that we do, but they have their problems, that's for sure. In the beginning, you I think it was one of the first slides, you left, or you, on the right-hand side, you had an X, and one of the items was landscaping. And why is that excluded from economic growth? Because landscape and, let's say, sitescape or site improvements have a lot to do with the quality of the environment of any economic area. And so I think that needs to be included. You know, landscape should be a part of it. And that doesn't just include plants. That's not just wet landscape. That's features, that's amenities, and that needs to be a part of the growth. And that's sort of there's a conflict there between FAR, increased FAR, and the use of site improvements. So that needs to be, there needs to be a balance there. I mean, just doubling it, let's say to 100% from 50%, I mean, that's a huge, that's double, okay? So that's a big deal. And to make you know, a report that says, let's just double it. There needs to be some investigation in not just the number, but where you apply that number. And again, I'm kind of, I don't want to be redundant, but there needs to be a balance of, you know, which zones are we talking about? Just quickly getting back to the gateway concept. That, I think, aligns more with the gateway than a hotel, for instance. So that's the kind of stuff we should be looking at. I know this takes a lot of work, and you guys have already put in a lot of work, which we do appreciate, but it's super important because it is generational for our city. You know, I think I'm probably gonna have some more things to comment on, but those are the main ones. And hopefully that's helpful. And just lastly, so I think, and I may have mentioned this, that we need to have some evaluation of projects in San Clemente and in these other cities that have not been successful and have had these kind of incentives, and the development has been sort of pushed through. Because as Commissioner McCann says, you know, we're talking about entitlements, which is what we're involved in here. And I think that we've been very pro-development, you know, pro-growth, at least the 5 years that I've been here, and Commissioner, the doctor. So that's all I have for now. Excellent work, thanks for that, but I think we got a long way to go on this one. So,
Garrett? Yep.
I appreciate the report. I think there is a lot of good information, you know, here. I think it's something that the city needs to do. As somebody who's saying Sayonara, you do need to look at the occupancy, you know, transient occupancy tax, because the city does need some revenue sources, while being sensitive to the scale and the type of, you know, construction that happens. But on a realistic note, we don't really have the big buildable area for the thing that everybody fears of the massive. What I see this more, besides if you take out the outlet, which does have a large piece of property, you don't really have the opportunity here. It's like a lot of mature cities. You've got a lot of small, you know, commercial areas along El Camino, and to put together a big thing that we all fear, you'd have to buy quite a few pieces of property to even, get into that area. So the way I see this is more of maybe trying to encourage small, maybe kind of boutique sort of properties that fit in more with our, village by the sea rather than some big box, that we threaten. And the reason for Gateway, I think, is important is because that's where other people who don't live here come in. And to see if they saw a small, boutique-y kind of thing where they could stay, I think it just could benefit, the city. And I think it's worth looking at something, although I agree with a lot of the fears that my fellow commissioners, have spoken about. I think it's pursuable. And we should keep going, in this direction. But I think the only big fear of the big project that everybody hates, it's a big concrete box, is the outlets. Unless somebody comes in and buys a big strip, of El Camino Real and also wants to go down a couple stories, to get their property. I don't think we're going to see any big gigantic, development. So that's my parting. I appreciate the staff's work. But we don't get much in, the TOT, and we probably should. Because we do have a lot of people that come, go to the beaches, and then go back home or go somewhere. And we probably do need to look at that. And I hope that at some point, when I'm no longer a commission member, we finally get a parking structure. That's really what we need to help the downtown area. That's it.
Okay, great. I want to start with asking a question of you guys, and this one is it's more rhetorical, I think, which is, what is the goal of the task that you guys were given? And I think that in part is the problem, because you were maybe not given a clear goal. I think you had bear witness to a lot of council conversations on the dais, and then said, go forth and make something happen. And that is not good direction. I'm just gonna call that out. I watched those council meetings, and when they were debating the rooftop deck at the outlet mall, they were all over the place. And that does not make good policy. I understand they were trying to push that and get that done. Fine. That's done. Okay. What this report is really obsessing about hotels. Is it a coincidence that this direction was born out of the day that they were discussing the rooftop deck at the hotel and we need more rooms? I don't know. It's just confusing. The goal's not clear. So what I'm taking away from the report is there is a desire on the part of the city council to look at how do we improve some of our development processes and look at how we can do for more economic development. Great, okay. So to me, I think we need to open the aperture and be more like, that's what we're looking at, and not be like this laser focus on, we need more hotels, and here's a lot of data, and we can back into that now, the justification for, we need to do all these hotels, and therefore we're gonna relax all these standards, and we're gonna invite all these developers to come in, and voila, we'll have more hotels, problem solved. I don't think so. I don't think that's gonna solve the problem, because the problem's not clearly defined. And frankly, I'm just back to, it's always good to improve. It's always good to look at our processes and say, how do we do better? And as a city, we want to obviously grow smart, wisely, right? But we are mostly built out, and so that is part of the challenge as well. So I just want to just do a quick breakdown of some of the things that you've talked about in your report. Development standard was the first thing you led off with, and you had time, expense, and uncertainty. So number one on time, in my humble opinion, since this is all in the coastal zone, the number one shortcut or way to get the time reduced, adopt an LCP. Full stop. That's really down on your list. That's not number one. That's way down. So the uncertainty, have an LCP, because that creates certainty, because now the city is controlling those standards. Now, maybe our standards are not as objective as they should be, but they're pretty well documented, right? And so if the staff feels you can do a better job at putting more objective standards, say that. Hey, we see these opportunities within our code to be more objective. Do it. Okay. That doesn't mean we need to loosen. It doesn't mean we need to give stuff away. It means we have an opportunity to make more objective standards that people can come in. And for people who may not understand the correlation between objective standards and uncertainty is having objective standards reduces the back and forth between the city and the applicant because they're subject to interpretation. You remove that subject to interpretation, you reduce the back and forth. And the expense part, that is driving the whole FAR lot coverage conversation, and the race to profitability. But there's so many other factors, interest rates, cost of building materials, labor, so many, there's a lot of other things that go into it. And so, as others have mentioned, I feel like we need to be very careful about giveaways in FAR lot coverage, extra stories, that kind of thing. It just should not be a blanket, let's just do this. That is a knee-jerk reaction. We need to be measured. And so, should those be on the table? Yes. Should they be on the table doubling? Probably not. And so there's a balance there, and that's probably where you're going to have to do Commissioner Camp mentioned this is a lot of work to do that, right? To look into that. So I'll come back to how I think you can do it without having to spend a lot of time on it. But that right there is kind of capsulizes my feeling. You talked about your outreach to some citizens, or you had citizen input. Can you tell us about how many citizens you spoke to, or what was the sample size? Just generally speaking,
Yeah,
what was that engagement? What did that engagement look like?
Yeah, we had a booth set up at the Cinco de Mayo festival, and we broadcasted numerous options. One of those was the economic development opportunity and the trolley program. And we had an interest list sheet where people signed up. I believe there was roughly 8 people on that list. So
Okay.
we had a bunch of people come to the booth, but 8 people overall were interested in hearing more.
Okay.
It's a hard concept to explain and really engage deeply in at a public event, but yeah, people gave us some general ideas.
Okay, that's not a big sample size. The thing that I would tell you is this: San Clemente is not a simple town to make change in, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is because people like how the town works. Is it perfect? No, nothing's perfect. However, if you've lived here and you talk to people and you listen to people, what you hear is, I like my neighborhood. I like the small town feel. That is our value proposition. That is our charm. We lose that, we've lost the whole thing. We've lost the plot. We've lost what makes us, us. And when I read reports like this, that's really more foot on the accelerator, maximize development, let's push for revenue. I'm sorry, that is not in keeping with what we are, our town. Should we, again, I'm not trying to say no development, I'm trying to say smart development, I'm trying to say development that fits within the charm and character of our town. And I want to just talk about that because I think we've lost our way on this report, and because it conflicts with our general plan. Our general plan talks about the village concept, pedestrian orientation. It does not talk about monster projects, big hotels. We are not that. And that is very clear in the general plan. And one of the things that's very interesting, if you understand the planning process in this town, there were probably 20 citizens, normal citizens, not council members, not planning commissioners, just regular people in the town who sat for 2 years on that general plan development committee that put the Centennial General Plan together. Like Robert, his name was on there, Mr. Beaulieu. His name was on that list. Yeah, Beaulieu, I got to get that right. And there are others, right, that have come, I've noticed that have come before us to share their opinion because people are really invested in our view corridors and keeping our small town feel and the Spanish colonial revival architecture. When people come to San Clemente, that's, I spent a lot of time out this last year talking to people. And I would say at the farmer's market, my hit ratio on citizens was about 50-50. That's my unofficial take on how many people come to the farmer's market that live here and then those that are from out of town. What's really interesting is, hi, do you live in San Clemente? No, I wish I did. That's the number one response I got. No, I wish I did. I'm not sitting there, I got nothing to do. Oh, why is that? How do you feel? Are you visiting? Where are you from? Why do you feel that way? Oh, and you know what they tell you? All the stuff I just mentioned. Like, you can't get that anywhere else. So we got to make sure that no matter, the city council is elected for 4-year terms and then someone else is elected. But our governing documents are here to stay, and that's what we need to go by. And right now, our general plan is screaming at me saying, no, this is not in congruency with me. I'm having heartburn with this. It's okay to explore some opportunities to do better. And so to bring it all together, what I'm hearing from my colleagues here and from the speakers is we do have some opportunities, and they're on El Camino Real because we have vacant lots, we have businesses that are abandoned, we have real opportunity there. And so I think some of the stuff in your report is interesting. The statistics, I could ask you for an hour. Like, how did you come up with the, $68 million in spend from visitors? Who cares? It's just a distraction.
It was all AI.
Yeah, it's right. It's a distraction. We need to get back to what is it we're trying to do? What is the question we're trying to, what is the goal? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And I think what we need to, and if it is economic opportunities, that's it. In a nutshell, it's El Camino Real, and it's using our general plan and those focus areas. You take El Camino Real as it's defined by those focus areas, that's already done. So you can say North Beach has its own vibe, it's its own culture, its own climate. What would suit, what's the economic opportunities in that zone? It's like a microclimate. We have a micro economy in San Clemente with these focus districts. So what is the micro economy at North Beach? What's the gap? You do a fit gap, okay. And then that would lead you to, maybe we need some bed and breakfasts, maybe we need more restaurants, maybe we need more shopping. And we can look at the fact that we've got abandoned businesses or vacant lots as opportunity zones. And what is the way we can do that? And then you can just move south from there through the different focus zones. And if you want to skip the T zone, that's fine, right? But if you cover from North Beach to the top of the T zone, that's a certain target for sure, right? That's where a lot of the abandoned stuff is. And then the south part of El Camino Real could use some love too. And that's where we have a lot of our motels. And that's maybe where you want to put your hotel metrics on and go look at them and say, are they successful? Who are they catering to? What are their opportunities for improvement or things like that? Or maybe that's what, and really look at that micro economy of the south part of El Camino Real. And then in that context, kind of come back with some targeted opportunities. Then that way we don't have this one size fits all. Let's just bump our FAR up to 1.5. Or let's just go from a 50% lot coverage to 100. That's kind of a recipe for overdevelopment and losing all the things that I've been talking about. Whereas if we did a more drill down on these different micro economies using the focus areas in the general plan on El Camino Real, then we could tune it, right? This area needs this area needs that, and they're not going to be the same. And then I think we could get into really good discussions. The last thing I want to just say is on the gateways, that should just be removed from this whole thing. I don't see, to me, unless our microeconomies and how we want to maybe support those, and gateways, that's just like, I don't see how those, I don't know, what? Why is that pushed together? I'm back to my initial comment, like, we need to put a rooftop deck on this hotel, we want to do it, we understand we don't have the zoning, it wants to go higher than our zoning. Oh, it's in a gateway, does that mean it's okay? That's what happened. So why are we trying to now have the gateway tail wag the dog? It's done, great, we got the rooftop deck, awesome, I can't wait. Let's drop that whole gateway thing, because gateways are essentially village identifiers, and we have a lot of villages in our town, and it would be awesome to have those, and which we do not have. And you could have unique architectural identifications for each gateway that says you're coming into the Los Molinos district, you're going into to the T-zone, you're going into all these cool microclimates, cool little subcultures of San Clemente where people live. That's the village by the sea, and we don't have the identifiers for that. And so if we wanted to make a recommendation to the council, it would be along those lines of, we could create more identity or to expand our village by the sea and put these beautification, which could come in time for the Olympics, where we say we have these beautiful architectural identifiers to each of these districts, so people kind of get the hang of San Clemente. Oh, I'm in this part of San Clemente. I'm in that. Isn't this cool? They have all these different things. And that might spur them to get on the realtor.com and go, what does it take to live here? Because this is awesome. So anyway, I think the economics, which I'm glad you wrote what you did. I should have written this down. I wouldn't be rambling so long. But I think we need to have the gateways are a gateway thing. It's a beautification, it's identification, it's that. So you know when you're moving in and out of neighborhoods at those locations. And it would also clean up our freeway exits and on-ramps, and which are really just trash collectors right now. And it would be awesome to beautify those, put landscape, put identifiers on there, and get some local pride. Like when people come home, like, I am home, and I feel proud to be home, and this is my home, I'm gonna take care of it. There's a lot of benefit that goes to people identifying with their neighborhood. And so I love gateways, and I wish and if I were on the council, I would put money towards that. But I'm not. I'm just here to give you this opinion, and so I would love to see that put aside, and I still would like to see it go forward, but not packaged with the economy, our microeconomies and how do we improve things. So those are those thoughts, and I don't know how we wrap it all together. I'm trying to, I kind of feel like we're all saying the same thing. I don't know if we have any, what else do we want to say?
I mean, I feel like, we've each given our individual thoughts, with the exception of Patrick. But I mean, I think they kind of stand for themselves. I don't know that we need to.
Yeah, to put a bow on it.
Exactly. Like,
And how do you
that's
feel,
our
Sarah? Do
comments.
you feel like you got some useful input? Is this helpful, or are you more confused than when you sat down? How do we help you?
All of the above. No, it's good discussion. I will say some of the discussion, maybe, I hear there's fear of getting rid of visionary guiding principles. I will say, like, the report and these ideas are meant to be additive on top of them. So if a project were to go in the North Beach area, or they still have to comply with the focus area in the general plan, all of those guiding policies. The project would still have to comply with either the pedestrian or the architectural overlay, or whatever overlay that is currently sitting on that property. Like, none of that goes away, right?
I kind of don't agree with that, because some of the things on here that are talked about are policy things that would actually impact that in a way that would change our character. FAR for one, lot coverage for two, stories number three. The number one thing I hear from residents anecdotally when the new hotels were being proposed, or any projects being proposed, some of them are pulled off, is the number of stories, especially in the T-zone. People do not want it to be, when people say, I don't want to be Huntington Beach, you know what that means? I don't want it to go over 3 stories. That's what, I'm translating that.
yeah.
But that's what, you have to know how to speak San Clemente.
No.
I don't want to be Huntington Beach, that means the 3 stories, boom,
Yeah.
no more.
Well, and a part of this
And I
is-
want it stepped back, so I only really see 2.
Sure. A part of this is understanding. We heard we want to incentivize through amending development standards. And the point is, there's only certain development standards you can actually amend to incentivize. So that's, kind of the study that we put forward is there's 7 or so development standards. And by the way, Commissioner Camp, by putting landscaping on the X side, we were definitely not saying we don't care about landscaping. We were saying we should not amend what we have. What we have is great. We care a lot about landscaping here in the city. We don't want to make things more lenient to incentivize. We want to keep that does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, this is good feedback. I'm still looking through my notes to see if there's anything it helps answer.
Okay. Well, we don't want to give you things that are not going to produce a better report next time around. We actually would like, so let me try and pull it all together, and if my colleagues disagree, tell me. But what I'm really hearing is we've been streamlined a lot already.
Yep.
And streamlined, and so again, to translate that in San Clemente speak is we've cut out public hearings.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, I'll give the staff one. We did merge some applications. There were like 100 and now there's 10. Okay, so that's a little easier. However, what streamlining has been in San Clemente is cut the planning commission out, cut the DRSC out, and let's just not have the public hearings. That'll save us 3 months. We don't have to write a report. We don't have to notice. That'll save us time. Okay. And I think the staff has been, somewhat sensitive to the fact that, okay, there is a line and we can't cross it because there is a value to that process and we need the residents to have a say in their town. Because when you take away the public hearing, you're saying, you resident, we're disenfranchising you. We're giving this power to the administrative approval, which is at the counter. Okay, but we're a community and we're all stakeholders and we do want to be heard sometimes, and there's a balance. So we feel that streamlining has been done a lot. I'm not going to say totally enough, but we're getting close to where it's too much.
Okay.
So there's that's number one. The other thing is as I already mentioned, and others have mentioned before, the LCP, number one way to really get the time reduced, because the Coastal Commission, as we talked about at our last meeting, there's no timeline on that. That is years. The other thing too is I still on streamlining, it's always kind of bugged me that it's been cut the public hearing out, that's streamlining. Well, there are other things we can do too. One of the things I mentioned was consolidate the number of applications because it was confusing to applicants and they were submitting the wrong application. So they would submit it, 6 weeks would go by or a month would go by, and then they'd find out nothing had happened because the application was wrong and maybe they didn't hear that or they didn't get the email or they missed the phone call or something. So to me, we can do better with our application. We can do better with making sure that we don't have resubmits. So if we're talking statistics, that would be interesting. How many times are people resubmitting their application because they didn't submit it complete, accurately, or in the right form? Right there, that's an opportunity for us to improve, but it has nothing to do with the review process. That is not us. That's not the review. So I would look at that right up at the front end regarding those two things. The other thing was again, uber focus on hotels. I think, again, wider aperture hotel, like everyone said, it's just one element of our economy here. And frankly, we are going to need them to fit within our village charm. I don't think we're going to want a tower hotel here. That's just not going to work. Even a 4-story is going to be you're going to see people with not liking that. Huh?
Pitchforks?
Yeah. So, but hey, the Hotel Clemente and the Hanson Hotel, those are awesome. Right there. I mean, those are over 100 rooms, and they're going to be boutique, they're going to be San Clemente specific, and I think people are going to love staying there because it is San Clemente specific. So we need to sell that. We need to explain to developers why coming here is a good thing, which is another thing. What happened to our economic development staff effort? What happened to that staff time that would go out and promote our town and promote our values? You know what I've learned sitting on design review? a lot of any architect that comes in from outside of San Clemente is clueless as to what our standards are. And so we're educating them. No, we don't do that here. Yeah, you know what, you're in an architectural overlay and you're required to have Spanish colonial revival architecture. Here's why. Oh, I didn't know. And so then it's like, we get a bad rap because they didn't read the design guidelines coming in. But there's benefit to it, and I think we need our economic development, we need some time with that, right? We should have somebody going out and pitching, we've got all this undeveloped land at the outlets, and we're supposed to have these great ocean view lot developed for big, cool, high-end restaurants. Well, why isn't someone working with Steve Craig to go make that happen? Right? That's approved, it's been done, but it sits there. And so now we're looking around like an Easter egg hunt for other things to do in the city when we already have stuff approved that's not built, that's designed to go in a certain place. So and then the gateway thing, right? That's not, we need to put that in the right box. So, I'm trying to just summarize, and then, sorry, yeah. Anyone else want to summarize anything I've missed?
Well, I want to
Or jump in?
piggyback on something you said, which you talked about kind of customized, but essentially customized hotels to San Clemente instead of kind of big box or whatever. And the 4 that are on the board, I think, are super well done in that regard.
100%.
And they got approved, and it wasn't a lot of hurdles.
Right.
There's a few historic hurdles, but other than that, I mean, those are unique to the property. But I think, like you said, I think those will be very popular. I think we should call each of those guys and say, hey, is there anything we can do to help you?
Yes, that's a good point. I had thought about
Yeah,
that
can we,
too.
is there anything that we can do right now to help you get going?
Yeah, so, and I think I'd mentioned that offline to staff, that we should be going to that and then go to council and say, we need a couple of contract building inspectors that we can assign to these hotels so that there's no latency from when they're not waiting weeks for an inspection. They can move, and they're not waiting on the city for anything, so they can get themselves constructed and opened. But for sure, the hotel on Del Mar, they're waiting on financing. That's their thing. Because I actually asked Mr. Sim last week, what's the status of your hotel? I get asked all the time, when are you going to break ground? I'd like to tell residents the real date. He goes, I hope by the end of this year, but we're looking for financing still. Yeah. But once they do break ground, let's figure out what we need to do to make sure that there's no waiting on the city during the construction process. Okay. I think maybe we're done. Anyone else have anything else you want to add?
No, I know you were pontificating a little bit there with
Sorry about that.
what we've sort of gone through in terms of trying to streamline.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, we've spent a lot of hours trying to help figure out ways to streamline and work with staff to the point where we don't see a lot of benefit that we can still add to this thing and still have the kind of reviews that we need. We're gonna disagree at times on the design and the need for a design review subcommittee, but we believe that they're important, to maintaining the character. And I think we've all pretty much spoke in different ways about the fact that I think we understand as a group why San Clemente is as popular and has the kind of quality environment that it does. And so, and that's tough to convey to you. How do you make that sort of a comparison? Because these cities are so different. You could say that, San Juan maybe has some qualities like San Clemente, but it's far different. So that's not an easy thing. Your task is, it's a tough one. And you've got a lot of information, a lot of data that can come to bear. And I appreciate your comment that, that's an add-on. We're not trying to get rid of that. But the report seems very focused on, like everyone's saying, the same thing, right? It's on statistics. How do we get economic growth? we think there's great ways to do that on El Camino Real. It's something we think there should really be a focus. And I love the idea of these, neighborhoods, these different locations, because it's long enough that we can do that. And we've got problems in our city in that, Del Mar is only a couple blocks, right? El Molino, that's only a couple blocks. You look at Santa Barbara, they've got State Street, which goes for miles. Well, we have El Camino Real,
That's it.
right? But we can do that there. So is it a redirection of this report? Maybe it is, to some degree. And hopefully this has been helpful in the discussion.
Microeconomies on El Camino Real, to the point where there could be, you could recommend, hey, these are some opportunities that's struggling, and maybe you need council, if you really want to do some envisioning in this microeconomy part of El Camino Real, to say, well, what do you want to see here? That could be a recommendation, right? You don't have to have the answer of what would be there. You can say, this identity has changed so much over time that it's not functioning anymore. And what you see as a result is businesses that have abandoned or vacant lots because it's no longer functioning, because it's lost its identity and it's kind of its purpose. And it's because you got a mix of uses. You might have institutional uses, you might have service industry uses that cater to locals, and you might have then gaps where things just have gone out of business and then they're just sitting there because it's just more valuable to the family member to hold the land and wait for something to change than try and develop on it. Because the value of the land is so high, they'll just sit on it and pass it on. So without the city coming in and saying, hey, we want to put these kinds of, I've had architects come to me and say, we would love to work on just envisioning parts of the area that are struggling and put an identity on it and define what that neighborhood is and what that microeconomy is. And then we could revisit, and then we don't need to give away FAR or lot size. We can just simply change the zone. And we can provide incentives to achieve that vision. And I think that's pretty much what, if you look at Anaheim, Irvine, Yorba Linda, any city that has done major transformative work that's driven by the planning department, it's all starts with envisioning. This is the goal, it's clearly defined. We want this kind of use in this space to generate this kind of activity, and these are the uses, and we're going to rezone it. And then the land becomes more valuable, so valuable that whoever's sitting on it ends up selling it. And then development comes in. That's kind of, you can suggest that for certain areas on El Camino that maybe in the south end of town that need it, or parts in the north end that might need that, as an example. And then that would kick off a project to go do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
A thought. First of all, I feel terrible for staff for what you just went through. But I now better understand how it happened. And I'd like to make a suggestion that in the future, when you aren't getting the direction that you might need or feel that you need from the elected body, it might be beneficial to pick our brain for a half hour before you embark. And this isn't a criticism, I'm trying to be constructive here. I think it sounds like the council said, go do that, that sounds good. And you did all this work, and you're hearing the outcome of the work, which, by the way, I agree with my counterparts here on everything that was said. I would love to have had a half-hour study session before our regular meeting and ask us, do you have any thoughts about how, what that might look like? We could have gotten this first and then developed the ideas and the thoughts. Just a suggestion. I don't even know whether it's something that is okay to do, so to speak, but I think it would have helped probably. So.
I think we probably had input overload. Yeah, and we really appreciate you listening and hearing us out. And sorry if some of it has been, for some of our past frustrations, and some of it is also our aspirations that we really want to see success on El Camino Real, and we really are supportive of that. Okay, well, thank you again. All right. That concludes that item, and I appreciate everybody, people in the audience, people on the dais, people in the staff roles, on all of that. We have item 10, which is no old business, and now that takes us to commissioner reports. Any commissioner want to give us staff questions or make comments? Other than thank you again, Gary, for 5 great years of working with you.
I guess I just have a question. So just to confirm where we're going in July,
Yep.
right? We're canceling July 8th, right? And we're having July 15th meeting. And then are we canceling? We're canceling the 22nd, okay.
And it looks like we're meeting at 5 PM on the 15th. So not our normal 6 o'clock time, but 5 PM.
Thanks for pointing
And there looks like there's quite a few items on that agenda. It'll be really great for Mr. Washington's first meeting to have to do the parklets, the coastal adobe outdoor display, the Short Cliffs Golf Course caretaker unit. Oh, that's not controversial at all. So welcome, Aaron. You're going to have a great time. Make sure you've gotten a good night's rest. You're going to need it. Yeah, nothing controversial about that one.
Special meeting on,
Yeah, that's the 15th. Yeah,
okay, wasn't
yeah.
Zebra House will also be on the 15th.
Oh, great.
Why not?
That'll be the easy one. Okay, yeah. That's correct, right? That's our TFA.
That's your TFA. You also have a new business item to elect a chair and a vice chair and committee assignments.
Yeah,
that same night?
that, on the 15th.
The recommendation is usually to move that to the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, same night.
Okay. That's going to be lively.
DRSC that afternoon too.
Are we going to do the DRC earlier in the day?
We're not planning any items for that hearing unless there's a problem. We do have 4 items on the DRSC next Thursday. If one of those got continued and the applicant was feeling urgent and you were feeling generous, it could get
Okay.
pushed to the next one.
That's why I think we're starting at 5, because the agenda's pretty packed with complex topics that really require some thorough, analysis of exactly what our policy is and because my understanding on the parklet determination is that the council had allowed a business owner with a parklet to appeal to the planning commission if they did not want to adopt the new standard. And it looks like a majority of them have chosen that path.
That's correct. We're not anticipating a majority of all the parklets. I think, Lexi, we're thinking 4 or 5 or 6. Whoever gets complete applications that staff think have a reasonable chance of being supported. We're not calling them appeals. We're calling them parklet dining permits that are subject to your discretion.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Okay,
So just to also add one other thing, if there is not a design review subcommittee meeting on the 15th, it'll be on the 29th. And there will also be an item on there for you to select your chairs.
okay. Okay. Zach, did you have anything from the staff that you need to share with us that we haven't covered already?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Tim, you can just take a pass. You're visiting, so you're good. Yes.
So,
I was just about to ask for adjournment motion.
I'm
What would you
not
like to
there.
add?
So, the 23rd to July 11th, I won't be here in case there is a DRSC,
The 23rd of July or June?
June.
Okay,
Till July 11th,
July 11th, okay,
so I won't be available for that. And Tamara has the
okay.
note.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Who's going to be here for DRSC?
On what, the 24th? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, are you guys, are you in
I'll be
town?
here.
Are you in town, Steve? So the three of us are the main, yeah, so we don't need our alternate, so that'll be okay. Yeah, the La Ronda townhomes are on that review. Did we get a rendering of those townhomes earlier? Is that what you sent over?
Yes, David and Christopher sent a rendering. We'll have a very brief report. This is the third different design rendering they've proposed.
Okay, they look pretty
The one
similar.
I saw was the same design.
Look pretty similar to me, to what they
It's not
submitted
new.
before.
Let's make sure we got the right file
Yeah,
transmitted.
it looked this, with the eyebrows on it and all
Yeah,
that.
There was no change.
Yeah, it looked pretty similar.
I think it even had a title that said, current design or something, so we need to see the new one.
We'll check on that tomorrow morning. My understanding is they have a new design.
Because that's why I brought it up, when I looked at it, I'm like, what's different about this?
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
I didn't really, yeah, I know, because we gave them some input. Okay, anything else?
I move adjournment.
Okay, we have a motion. Excuse me. So it's been moved by Commissioner McCann to adjourn to the special meeting of the Planning Commission scheduled for Wednesday, July 15th at 5 PM here at City Hall by Commissioner McCann, seconded by Commissioner Griffin. Is that correct?
Correction, it's an adjourned meeting.
Okay, not a special meeting.
Correct.
Okay, to an adjourned meeting on July 15th. Got to get these things exactly right, so our noticing doesn't get messed up. So, yeah, our adjourned meeting of the Planning Commission scheduled for Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, 5 PM at City Hall by McCann and Griffin. All those in favor? Aye. Aye, adjourned. Good night. Look forward to seeing you up here, Aaron.
Good luck. Look at that. I stayed.
Yeah.
City council.